Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, the United States has threatened Iran with the strongest sanctions in history. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo laid out the Trump administration's harsh conditions for negotiating a future nuclear deal with the hardline Islamic Republic, and he promised crushing sanctions if Tehran resumes its rogue nuclear program. Pompeo detailed 12 steps that Iran must take to avoid what he described as unprecedented pressure. America's top diplomat stressed that the size and extent of the requirements are a testament to the malign behavior of the Islamic Republic. Pompeo warned that the sting of sanctions will only grow more painful if the regime does not change course from the unacceptable path it has chosen for itself and the people of Iran. The Secretary of State emphasized the importance of regional stability and said that America will track down Iranian operatives and their Hezbollah proxies operating around the world and will destroy them. Businesses that continue to trade with the Islamic Republic in violation of U.S. sanctions will be held accountable. Pompeo added that the United States will work to ensure that Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon.
Israel has helped to thwart more than 30 terror attacks around the world. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed this fact last week in a meeting with the President of Panama, Juan Carlos Varela. The two leaders signed a bilateral free trade agreement focused on cooperation in fighting terrorism. Israel reportedly shared intelligence that Hezbollah was responsible for the 1994 bombing of a plane in Panama, and Varela expressed his gratitude for the information. He said that the fight against terrorism should unite all human beings to stop the evil that terrorists represent. 20 of the world's most senior Air Force officials were in Israel last week for a conference entitled Air Superiority as a Bridge to Regional Stability. High-ranking Air Force officials from all over the world attended the event, and it was reported that each of the 20 participating nations sent either the head of their country's Air Force or a deputy. Major General Amikam Norkin, head of the Israeli Air Force, said that he hopes that by the end of the conference, the commanders will understand the cooperation and partnership between various air forces is a bridge to better regional stability.
The Hamas terror organization has confessed to deceiving the world about the true nature of its protest in Gaza. One of the group's terror leaders, Mahmoud al-Zahar, told Al Jazeera that Hamas is not staging peaceful protest, but rather a violent resistance bolstered by a military force and security agencies. He's convinced that the armed struggle against Israel is growing. Al-Zahar said that when the Palestinians talk about peaceful resistance, they are intentionally deceiving the public. He boasted that the terror group's deception is reaping tremendous support for Hamas.
The United Nations Human Rights Council has convened a special session to discuss the situation on the Gaza border. The UNHRC condemned Jerusalem for what it claimed was disproportionate and indiscriminate use of force, and it voted to investigate the Jewish state for the deaths of Arabs in Gaza. This comes despite the fact that Hamas has admitted that 50 of the 62 people killed during its Nakba Day protests were in fact members of the terror group. Israel's ambassador to the world body says that Jerusalem spares no effort to minimize casualties when it defends its borders against Gaza terrorists. Jerusalem slammed the decision, saying that it proves that the body has an automatic anti-Israel majority where hypocrisy and the absurd hold sway.
Jerusalem has recalled its ambassador to Ankara after the president of Turkey equated Israel's defense of its border with Gaza to the Nazi persecution of Jews. Recep Tayyip Erdogan sent his condolences to what he called the martyrs killed in the violent Gaza riots, and he accused Israel of genocide. Jerusalem has halted agricultural imports from Turkey, and Israel's Minister of Tourism called on the public to cancel any upcoming trips to the hostile Muslim nation. Israel's ambassador to Ankara was harassed by Turkish authorities as he and his team were leaving the country, and a group of Israeli journalists were attacked in Istanbul by angry mobs who heard them speaking Hebrew.
The international community has remained eerily silent as the Assad regime has systematically destroyed a Palestinian camp near Damascus. The Jerusalem Post described the Syrian army's recent siege of the Yarmouk camp as apocalyptic and a crime against the humanity of the thousands of Palestinians who remained there. In 2011, Yarmouk was home to more than 200,000 people. Now only a few thousand remain, and they're reportedly starving under the siege. Idris Ahmad, an expert on the Syrian civil war, said that what is happening in Yarmouk requires people to be outraged. And he pointed out that the hypocrisy of singling out Israel in the conflict with Gaza while ignoring the fate of the Palestinian camp.
Paraguay has become the third country in 2 weeks to move its embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. It follows the United States and Guatemala. President Horacio Cartes traveled to the Holy City for the celebration. He said he appreciates Israel for courageously defending its right to live in peace and for building a praiseworthy, economically prosperous state that ensures its future and that of its children. Israel confirmed that it is in talks with several other countries that have expressed an interest in transferring their diplomatic missions from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
The United States and 6 Arab Gulf countries have announced new sanctions against Iran's proxy army Hezbollah. The Lebanese terror group is funded and trained by Iran, and the newly announced sanctions focus on destabilizing the Shura Council, which is the decision-making arm of the terror group. The sanctions target Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, along with 4 other members of the Shura Council. The 6 Gulf states, which are members of the U.S. and Saudi-led Terrorist Financing and Targeting Center, announced that they were also imposing sanctions against 9 entities linked to Hezbollah, which are already blacklisted by the U.S. Treasury Department.
The U.S. Congress is considering officially acknowledging the Golan Heights as part of Israel. The House Committee on Foreign Affairs has been presented with a proposal to recognize Israeli sovereignty in the Golan Heights. Israel gained control over the strategic area in 1967, and in 1981 the Jewish state annexed the Golan, making it an inseparable part of Israel. Unfortunately, the international community never accepted this decision, and most countries still consider the area to be disputed territory. Florida Representative Ron DeSantis proposed to change America's stance on the issue and said that this is a natural follow-up to the U.S. Embassy's relocation to Jerusalem. DeSantis said that Washington's recognition of Israel's sovereignty in the Golan Heights would clarify that it has no intention of forcing Jerusalem to relinquish the territory.
Ramallah has recalled its diplomatic envoys to Austria, Romania, Hungary, and the Czech Republic as punishment for participating in celebrations for the U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem. The Palestinian Authority warned that participation in any official celebration would be perceived as endorsing the United States decision to recognize Jerusalem, and as a result, several European nations chose not to attend the Israeli Foreign Ministry's event on the eve of the embassy opening. This comes just days after the Palestinian Authority threatened that Budapest, Bucharest, and Prague would suffer the consequences for voting against a European Union referendum to condemn the United States for recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and for moving its embassy.
The United States ambassador to Israel has hailed Christian support of the Jewish state. U.S. Ambassador David Friedman told the New York Times that the evangelical community played a significant role in the decision to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. In recognition of that effort, Friedman invited several evangelical leaders to speak and pray at the opening ceremony for the embassy. Israel's ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, echoed this sentiment, saying that devout Christians have become the backbone of U.S. support for Israel.
An Israeli community near the Gaza border has created a beautiful response to the destruction of its wheat fields by Palestinian arsonists. Residents of Kibbutz Sa'ad were unable to celebrate the Jewish holiday of Shavuot by reaping their wheat harvests because their fields were destroyed by Molotov kite bombs flown into Israel from Gaza. The community decided to respond to the destruction by making kites with messages of peace and love attached to them. What started out as a group of Israelis making colorful messages of hope became an inspiration to the Jewish nation. A representative from Kibbutz Sa'ad said that this gesture struck people deeply and it gave people hope that they can change the situation. The children of the kibbutz reportedly flew 250 kites of peace simultaneously during the holiday.
Israeli scientists have developed a method which they believe will stop the growth of cancer cells. Researchers at Ben Gurion University of the Negev have created a molecule that prevents cancer cells from growing and reprograms them to become normal cells. The molecule, known as siRNA, inhibits the production of the VDAC1 protein, which is present in high levels in tumors. Professor Varda Shoshan Barmatz from the Department of Life Sciences, and the National Institute for Biotechnology explained that cancer cells have hundreds of times more VDAC1 than normal cells. So she and her team decided to work to prevent the formation of this protein. She said that although the research is still in its early stages, her team is excited with the results, which demonstrate the potential of this novel molecule for cancer treatment.
Israeli archaeologists announced the discovery of 5 rare coins that have caused excitement throughout the archaeological community. The coins date to the end of the 4th century before the Common Era and are inscribed with the word Yahud in Aramaic. Israeli archaeologist Zaki Dvira said that he believes that these were the first coins ever minted by Jews and that they express the people's return to their land after the Babylonian exile and their ability to hold and maintain diplomatic ties with the ruling Persian Empire. Dvira said that it is ironic that at a time where Iranians are openly speaking about destroying Israelis, coins are uncovered from a time when the Persian regime was favorable toward Jews and allowed them to live in Israel in dignity. That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein and we're here on a beautiful sunny day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Elon Greenfield. He's the CEO of Geffen Publishing. Elon, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Tell our viewers a little about what is Geffen Publishing.
Geffen Publishing is a publisher that's been around for over 36 years. And we publish mostly books that have to deal with Israel, Judaism, the Holy Land. And we will publish every book that we believe is good for Jews, for Christians, and for the state of Israel.
You've published some of my favorite books, But They Were Good to Their Mothers is about Jewish mafia. Caroline Glick's book that just came out recently, which is one of the best political strategical books. How do you select which books, because there's such a big genre, how do you select which book is going to be published?
I would say one of the most difficult tasks of a publisher is selecting that specific book, that on one hand is a valuable book, has a great message that it wants to spread out, and on the other hand will also sell on the market. Because one of the problems are there's some very good books, but they won't do well on the market because it's a very small market. And since we are in relatively a niche market, we have to be very careful with the books we select. The book you have mentioned just now, Buddy Was Good to His Mother by Bob Rockaway, is a very good example. It's a fabulous book that talks about Jewish gangsters in America in a humorous manner. I'll just give one annotation there. He claims that some of the gangsters would not murder on the Sabbath. So, you take this from right to left, you say, wow, they were really great people. They didn't murder on the Sabbath. But then you say, wait, but they did murder people. So it's a question, do you publish that book or not? On the other hand, he had a very nice message showing that the Jewish gangsters were a one-generation mafia, and afterwards most of them became very good citizens, did a lot of good deeds, gave a lot of tzedakah, a lot of donations and philanthropy, and that's where it ended. But it is definitely the most difficult task that we have to choose and select out of thousands of manuscripts we get every year and put out those 20 books that we believe convey the right message and will sell in the market.
You mentioned yourself that it's a niche market. You're a publishing house that publishes primarily in English, but based in Jerusalem. Is there enough people in Jerusalem writing books in English that you can spread out around the world?
First of all, it says, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, from Zion, Torah shall come out. We have adapted it and said, Ki mitzion yetzu sfarim, from Zion, books will come out. We are the people of the book. And the question is not really if there are enough authors in Jerusalem. We publish authors from all over the world. We publish authors from Australia, from New Zealand, from Israel, from the United States, from the United Kingdom, and elsewhere. I think what we try to do, we try to sell an Israeli product. We print all of our books in Israel, and we believe that by selling an Israeli product, it's very appealing for many of the people who are interested in Israel as a Jewish state and as the Holy Land for Christians.
I would imagine, though, that most of your books are actually sold in the United States of America or in English-speaking countries around the world. How do you get the book, once you publish it, out there to the market?
This is correct. Most of our books are sold in the United States, some in England, South Africa, Australia, and other English-speaking countries. We ship the books from here, we print here, we ship them to our warehousing center in the States. And then we have to do a lot of marketing. We have to get on TV shows, we have to get on radios, we have to get reviews. And thank God we've gotten reviewed almost on every, I would say, major newspaper in the United States, from right to left. And thank God the books are selling.
Your newest book coming out actually tackles an issue that everyone's interested in, and that's Israel as the high-tech nation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. We have just recently published, beginning of March, a book that came out called Thou Shall Innovate by Avi Jorish. Avi Jorish is a businessman, an entrepreneur from Washington, D.C. And it startled him, how can it be that Israel, such a small country, is the country of the second most companies on NASDAQ after the United States and China. It just didn't make sense to him. He started reviewing how come this small country has so much innovation coming out of it. And in his book, Thou Shall Innovate, he writes, number one, where this innovation thinking process came out of. And it basically originates from the Bible. And then he takes 15 unique cases of innovation that came out of Israel, dealing with food technology, dealing with solar energy, dealing with saving people's lives in the medical field. And he brings amazing stories how Israel has really changed the world. And these innovations, in many cases, have saved millions and tens of millions of lives throughout the world, whether in Africa, whether in Asia, whether in the Middle East, whether in the United States. Israel has innovations that have basically, I would say, resolved the issue of water purification. There are countries in the world that don't have water. And with Israeli innovation, today they can survive. In Africa, the countries who don't have electricity, with solar energy, one solar panel in a sunny day like this can change a whole village, that suddenly they have hot water, suddenly they have less infant mortality. And all these innovations come together, showing that Israel is one of those nations, and one of the few ones in the world, I would say, that its theme is tikkun olam, repairing the world, making this world a better place. And I think that maybe that's something that the world has to look and see and understand. The innovations don't help Israel only. The innovations don't only make money for Israelis. The innovations, the most important thing of these innovations that Avi Jorish wrote in Thou Shall Innovate, is that you make this world a better place. And Israel is a small country who's gotten a lot from other countries in the world. The United States has been supporting us for many years. The Christians around the world have been supporting us for many years. And I think we all value that. Israel is a country that gives back. Israel is a country that pays back. Israel is a country that wants to make this world a better place.
Golan, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
The most important message that I think has to come out of Jerusalem, as a human being, as a Jew, as an Israeli, as a publisher, is we all have to do every single day what we believe will make the world better. And therefore, every book we choose to put out, we choose to publish, is a book that we believe you can read and help with that book, with what you learn, make it a better world for all of us. For Jews, for Christians, for Muslims, for Hindus, for all mankind and womankind around the world. And I think if we manage to do that, as we said in the Haggadah, Dayenu, we have done enough.
Thank you, Golan, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren HaYesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Keren HaYesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. After World War II, an extraordinary effort was launched with the funds raised by Keren HaYesod donors to bring home the survivors of the Holocaust to the land of Israel. This is the story of clandestine immigration of the survivors of the Holocaust to their ancient homeland.
For 2,000 years, the Jewish people, scattered and dispersed throughout the four corners of the globe, never gave up on the improbable dream of returning home to Israel. Jews everywhere prayed to the Lord, "May our eyes see your return to Zion with mercy." The impossible suddenly appeared within reach when the mighty British Empire issued the Balfour Declaration in 1917, recognizing the Jewish people's right to their historic and spiritual homeland. But as the dark clouds gathered over Europe, the door to the land of Israel was not yet open. Under Arab League pressure, the British ruthlessly restricted Jewish immigration. As the world looked on, Keren HaYesod, alongside Jews already in the land of Israel, banded together and took on the challenge. They launched the clandestine naval operation, codenamed Aliyah Bet, to save their brethren from the clutches of Nazi Germany and bring them to Israel, fulfilling Ezekiel's prophecy of bringing dry bones to life. With careful organization and ingenuity, these brave souls defied the British authorities. Makeshift, rickety boats set sail from ports across Europe, transporting a wretched human cargo of men, women, and children desperately seeking refuge. But the might of His Majesty's Navy stood in their way. Time and again, those who had escaped the gas chambers gazed longingly at Israel's coast, the land of freedom in their midst, only to be defied by the British and turned back to Europe. Fruma Gallant was just such a little girl when she traveled to Israel on the SS Exodus during the Hamallah. Upon its arrival to the port of Haifa, the ship was deported back to Europe, thus making it a symbol of the many hardships Jews had to face during the time of Aliyah, immigrating to their historical homeland.
ראינו את אוניות הבריטים, המשחטות שלהם, מסביב כמו דגי טרף כל הזמן. כמו שאנחנו נסענו, הם נסעו. ואז הגיע היום, ראינו שהאוניות מתחילות להתקרב אלינו, וגם ראינו את חיפה, את האורות כבר. וכולם התחילו לשמוח מאוד שרואים אורות, אבל אני מבינה שהיו אנשים שהבינו מתחיל קרב וזה. הם התחילו לשחק כדורגל, האנגלים עם האונייה. אחד נתן דחיפה ימינה, השני שמאלה, והאונייה התחילה להתפרק כמו לגו. בחיפה הורידו את האנשים, עשו עליהם פליט עם כל הכעס שהיה להם, והעבירו אותנו לאוניות, ל3 אוניות. זו הייתה אוניית אסירים, הם זרקו את כל התרמילים. אנשים נשארו כמו שעלו, בלי בגדים, בלי שום כלום.
Undeterred, the overcrowded, unseaworthy vessels of Aliyah Bet continued to challenge the blockade. Young Jewish fighters, aided by their non-Jewish sailors, succeeded in bringing more than 70,000 Jews home to the land of their forefathers in more than 100 vessels.
We came to the port of Haifa on the boat called Argentina. One of the boats of Haganah who've been caught maybe an hour or half an hour earlier, and they were singing all of a sudden Hatikva. And we also started to sing Hatikva. It was a very emotional, something that one does never forget.
Those who made it ashore were swiftly smuggled into the future Jewish state by daring activists from Keren HaYesod and elsewhere. Evading capture, the new arrivals were taken to kibbutzim and other new communities to live as free Jews in their own land, fulfilling the dreams of countless generations before them. And in doing so, they brought to life Zechariah's prophecy, "Not by might and not by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord."
זה המקום היחיד שאתה יודע שאתה בארץ שלך, על הקרקע שלך, כמו כל עם נורמלי אחר.
To this day, Keren HaYesod is helping Jews around the world come home with the help of Jews and non-Jews alike.
Let's bless Israel together.
Now's the time for you to get involved. Assist Keren HaYesod to raise the necessary funds in order to bring Jews yearning for their homeland back to Israel. Your donation can help fulfill the biblical prophecy today. To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Ready for a real shocker? I completely agree with the leaders of the Hamas terrorist organization who've said this over the past few days. Mahmoud Azhar, a co-founder of Hamas, said that calling the actions of Palestinians on the Gaza border peaceful is a clear deception, his words. This is not peaceful resistance, he said. I agree. Shooting guns and lobbing explosives at Israelis isn't peaceful at all. Or take Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. He said that the aim of the riots is to, quote, tear down Israel's border and tear out their hearts. I agree that destroying Israel and killing innocent Israelis is his true goal. Well, how about senior Hamas official Salah Baghdawil? He said that 50 out of the 60 Palestinians killed Monday, that's over 80%, were members of Hamas. In other words, members of a terrorist organization. The same Hamas that has called for genocide of every single Jew. I agree that Israel targets terrorists. Now, if you don't believe me, or if you don't believe the leaders of Hamas, just take a look at this video. Palestinians break through Israel's security fence, some of them waving meat cleavers. "Oh, Jews," they shout, "we're coming to slaughter you." This is what we're defending our families against. And you would do exactly the same.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.